All right, what's up everybody? Today we're going to talk about skipping and how we teach skipping at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning and why we think skipping is important to begin with. So the linear skip or the A skip is a big part of our active warm-up, both for our athletes and for our adults. And skipping is important because it's the foundation for teaching good acceleration mechanics for sprinting. And for our adult clients, it can also supplement some of their power work, right? So for our athletes, we want to teach them to skip because it teaches good arm and knee action that translates well to teaching sprinting. And our athletes that skip well tend to also sprint well, right? So there's a really good time to kind of coach the big things like arm action, knee drive, hip drive, and dorsiflexion, which are all going to translate to their sprinting mechanics. For our adults, we also want to prioritize skipping. And you might think, why is skipping important for someone who's 40, 50, maybe an accountant or a real estate person who sits at a desk all day? Well, it's important because for them, as they get older, they tend to lose power even quicker than they lose strength, right? And for some of our older adults, aggressive plyometric and power work like jumping over hurdles or jumping onto big boxes might not be the great choice when we're thinking about risk versus reward. But power work can be a good way to segue into a little bit of elastic and power work with a little bit less risk. And even for your adult clients who might just run like a few miles every week, ironing out the skipping pattern so they become a little more neurologically efficient is going to improve their overall running mechanics and make them more efficient, even if they're just running a few miles here and there. So I'm going to have my friend Jen here help me demonstrate some of the skipping mechanics as I explain them to you. So when we first teach skipping in MBSC, we want to think about three big cues to start. People might struggle, they might over-rotate, they might not look great, but we want to see if they can do these three things well first. So number one, we want to see good arm action. We want to see that the arm travels from the head to the hip. Sometimes I'll say from cheek to cheek, right? We want to understand that the movement's not coming completely from the elbow. Lots of times you'll see people kind of do the karate chop thing like this. We want to see the movement drives from the shoulder, and then it goes from somewhere around 90 to 70 degrees here, and then swings all the way down past the hip here. So it's not going to be 90-90 like some people say. We want to see that the arm drives past. As if the cue I like to give is there's a nail back here, you have a hammer in your hand, you're trying to hammer a nail into the wall behind you, okay? So let's just practice a little arm action here. I want to see you just driving through, think about snapping by, okay? Just kind of keep the hands somewhat relaxed. We don't want to be overly stiff, but we don't want to be gripping a fist either, right? And I want to see that he strikes past the hip as if he's hammering a nail into the wall. The next big cue we want to think about is marching. We want to see good hip action, good knee drive. A lot of people are going to do short, lazy skips, or we're going to see overly flexed hips. We want to see that he can just drive that knee just past his hip line so he can get a good, powerful strike down the ground. So I'm going to have Jen just march in place here, okay? Good. I want to see him still working on that arm action. I want to see those knees get up a little bit higher. It's going to drive to my hands. Good. And the big thing we want to iron out first is opposite arm, opposite leg action. Now this might seem really simple, like who would march or skip like this? But if you taught enough people to skip or run before, sometimes you'll actually see some adults or younger kids even especially who can't even coordinate opposite arm, opposite leg. So we want to make sure we get that big rock out of the way first, okay? And then the third thing is I want to see dorsiflexion. I don't want to see us running and skipping with our ankles down like this, and you're going to see a lot of people do that. So we want to make sure that we're cueing that when they march, they're thinking about pulling their toes up towards their shins. And then the cue I even like to give for the knee that also will help the ankle is imagine you're squeezing a tennis ball behind the knee. So let's get another march here. Focus on the ankles, the knees, and the arms here. Good. Nice and tall. Right? So first thing we do is we're going to teach a march in place. From there, our second step is teaching skip in place. So Jen's just going to add a little bit of bounce to the bottom leg. And what I mean by that is just like he's on a pogo stick. So just practice that with me. We want him to get a little bit of springy here. Right? So he's just going to kind of add that into that march. So let's march in place first. Get that action. Now add a little skip in place, a little bit of an A skip bounce here. Let's go right into that. Good. Work on bouncing. We want them to be able to iron out the pattern first. Okay, then finally step three, we're going to go skip forward. So I want to see that he gets that bounce on the bottom foot. Keep working those arms, keep working those knees up high. Good. Come on right back here so you can show the camera coming back. Okay, march in place, skip in place, and skip forward here. Good. Good, powerful arm action, hands coming back to hips, right? So when you're teaching skipping, people might struggle with coordination. They might struggle with the basic mechanics, but focus on the three things first. Focus on arm action, focus on good knee drive, and then focus on dorsiflexion. As they practice more, they'll become more neurologically efficient. If you look at successful collegiate or Olympic sprinters and you watch them skip, they look really sharp, really smooth, and almost looks effortless. But the reason that is because they practice over time. They also have pretty good genetics. but the more you practice, the more neurologically efficient you will become. You'll become a little bit more springy, a little bit more elastic, and you'll look sharper and smoother in your movements. So I say if you add this into your warm-up, we typically go 10, 15 yards down and back a couple times. And if you're working with an athlete, or if you're an athlete that really values sprinting, I would maybe get even more practice than that. And for our adults, it's going to be a really good tool to work in some early, lower impact power work in your program.